So if you're in China and you're trying to get to sea, if there's a chain of islands from Japan all the way down through Philippines, and that is the first island chain. So it's sort of a barrier of islands. Taiwan is one of them as well, that is between you and the open ocean. So if you or all of your allies occupy the first island chain, then anything that would get in or out would have to go by you or your allies. So having partners and ally nations there can be very influential if you have a competitor that is in that area and is trying to stir things up. So it's important to make sure that you have relationships with those countries so you could leverage that in strategic competition.
Hey everybody, I'm Chief Xander Gamble. We're here today with Mr. Russ Evans, our Associate Dean of Naval Studies, and this is our 5th of 5 episodes talking about the Naval Studies Certificate. We're going to be talking about NAV 105, the last course in the series, Introduction to Geopolitics. So why did we choose to have this course as the capstone course?
So we try to bring everything together. So if you look at, what is the role of the naval services? What is the role of all of government as far as the United States trying to accomplish its security goals? And now we're going to go to the broadest. So we went from self, we had the context of history, we talked about the services, we broadened out to DoD, and now we're going to look at the bigger picture as far as how nations relate to each other and attempt to accomplish goals. And so from that perspective, we thought this was the biggest lens, so to speak, to look at, and so we would save it for last. And this is sort of our capstone course that tries to leverage and bring together all of those things into one particular course.
So instead of just looking at how we fit into the DoD and the rest of the nation, it's hey, how does America fit on that global scale?
Yeah, how do countries interact with each other? What are the things that they do to accomplish their goals? What are the broader aspects outside of the government and the military that countries can use to accomplish those missions?
So how do the classes look like? What does the classwork look like?
Well, we have a capstone research paper. So what we look at is we still have the weekly discussions that we always have, but the capstone paper, it's the second research paper. The first research paper is in 102, and then in 105 we were looking at all of the things that we've covered so far in the course, from 101 all the way up to 105. Take a topic that interests you, that's important, and do the research to understand it better and relate it to something that we've studied. So once you've had that international context, you're able to look across all of the things we think that are relevant and important, at least for the time that we have. And so that's sort of the as we say, the capstone, the defining event, where you go off and say, hey, this is something that I think is important for national security, and I'm going to research and write on it.
So it's kind of pretty open. You get to choose the topic.
Yeah, you have to work that out with your instructor. There's a lot of times that we get really good topics that are just too broad. It's like, hey, that'd make a great book, and so we just have to narrow it down. So, but yes, that's a process that you work with your professor as far as, hey, this is the thing that really interests me. Is this something that I can accomplish in the time that I have? And then you work back and forth, and usually it's hey, yeah, just tweak this a little bit, just ratchet it down, and here are some examples of more specific topics inside the topic that you're interested in.
Okay, so what kind of topics have you seen some of your students choose?
I think one of the more interesting ones that I was going over with the student was looking at the relationship the Chinese have with the Marshall Islands. So it was a Coast Guard student, and it's like he normally made a port call in the Marshall Islands, but the Chinese had been in negotiations for security arrangements and sort of created some tension, and say, I can't go into port here anymore. We got to get this worked out. So it's interesting to see how China was trying to find allies and partners that might make things difficult for the United States, and one of the places that they tried to exert leverage was the Marshall Islands. So that's something that I may not have even thought about myself, but here's somebody who has real-world fleet experience and say, I want to understand this better. This thing happened to me, and now I understand a little bit more of the broader game that's being played, but I still want to do some research and dive a little bit deeper into it.
So, I mean, this sounds like really interesting stuff to understand from a high-level perspective, but how does the average second class, the average sergeant, apply this to their daily job?
Well, part of it, again, is understanding why things are important. So it's like, I go to this port call, why is everybody so concerned about minding our P's and Q's and making a good impression? Not to say that we don't ever, we always want to be, good ambassadors to the United States, but understanding how things fit in, again, in that context or bigger picture to see, all right, I understand this country is important for this reason, and here are some things that the Chinese are trying to do to make us look bad, and here's why I have to do these particular things, and why is this exercise important? Why is what are some things that are going on that other countries are doing that might try to make my job harder? And what are the aspects of the United States that beyond military power? How when I'm ashore, am I an example to show what the United States is really like? If we say, hey, be an ally with us. Here's some things that we bring together. The opportunity to work with partners and allies. Not only does that show our commitment as far as, hey, if you're friendly with us, we got your back, but also to show that, hey, when we say that we're not just here because we want something, we are here because we share a common view as far as how the world should work. Hey, if you want to trade, you should be able to go and trade with other countries. We feel that you should be able to do that. You feel that you should be able to do that. We have things in common. So we are good partners because we have things in common, and that includes if you're ashore, it's like, hey, here are people that are respectful. Here are people that are actually interested and want to learn. It's not just a transactional relationship. But that's not true just in what you do ashore, but understanding, hey, what is the goal of this exercise? Why am I deployed in this part of the world? Again, it's always about having that context of understanding how things fit together, so you see opportunities, risks, or advantages.
So, whereas NAV 104 teaches you how to be a better citizen, this teaches you how to be a better ambassador.
I would say it's not only just about being an ambassador, it's about understanding why it is important to be an ambassador. So it's not, again, just about reflecting well on the naval service, but there's an entire other level of things in the background that are going on that if you didn't pay attention, you wouldn't understand why they're important. So the thought that our partners and allies assist us in accomplishing our national security goals, but how do we know that they're important? But what does that actually mean? How does what they're doing benefit us, and what are some of the things we see our adversaries trying to do to get our friends to either not be friends or to be more friendly with them? So if you understand what the adversary is doing, then it's a little bit easier to not fall into that, I don't say trap, but you see the other side of what's going on, and it's like, okay, I get that, I understand what's going on here, I understand why this is important. And so that's, I think, again, we sort of harp on the naval context of things, and that's what we're trying to focus on is, all right, we talked about things that the Navy can do, or naval forces can do back in 103, and we talk about the all-of-government approach in 104, and we get to see all of those things play out in 105. All right, we talked about, here's the thing you can do with naval forces, and now we're seeing it play out as far as this is naval forces working with partners and allies to achieve that mission and achieve that goal. So it's again bringing things together so we can see how everything fits in, and while some of us have experience in made deployments in one part of the world, others have deployed in other parts of the world. So sometimes the student will say, hey, I participated in this exercise and we worked together on this, and this is some of the things that were at play in this part of the world where I saw countries trying to use other aspects of power. So if we talk about outside of government and military, economic aspects or social aspects or information. So if you're looking at dime or even legal things as far as law enforcement, is things as complicated as who gets to fish where sometimes impacts those relationships.
All right. So to bring this all, full circle, essentially the NAV 105 course, the Introduction to Geopolitics, the capstone course, if you will, takes a little bit of everything you've learned from all your other classes and makes for a final project that the student gets to work with the instructor, work with the professor to develop their own case study, essentially. And then they get to do that so that they have a better understanding of the missions that we do and how it affects those international relations that we have with other countries, and really lets the student have that understanding of the different relations and how they impact everything on that world scale.
Yeah, there are, again, other things that were at play that we hadn't covered in previous courses, and we try to fill in those gaps on the international side with that research paper going on in the background.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you talking about all the Naval Studies courses that we offer here. If you haven't signed up yet, go to usncc.edu. This Naval Studies certificate really is the best thing we have to offer for sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen to really make you a better enlisted leader. So take this opportunity. It's built into all of our associate degree programs, and we look forward to seeing you in class.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.